What a wild, wild Sunday with walk-offs in Madrid, in Atlanta, in Minnesota, in Nashville, and in Denver, with guys spitting and Shedeur Sanders getting on the football field and crazy kicks and crazy catches and Jalen Warren kicking dudes. Yeah, it was one of those weeks. And Aaron Rodgers is hurt. And is there anything going on? Michael Penix is, it's one of those weeks. And we're going to try to make sense of it here, everybody, on another edition of Inside Coverage. Welcome to a Monday show. Wrap it up, week number 11 on Yahoo. My name is Andrew Siciliano. We're here every Monday through Thursday. We thank you for being here. The how and the why, any and everything you need to know in the National Football League. When I say we're trying to make sense of everything, I don't know that we could possibly do that in only 1 hour, but we are going to try. And the two best people to do that are none other than Jori Epstein. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Andrew. I didn't know if we were going to get a great to see Frank first, but I think it's great to see you, Frank, even if Andrew's just saying it's great to see you. It's fine, it's fine.
That, yeah. It's nice.
It's this whole weird delay thing. So I had to like tee one up and not the other, because then you're both talking over each other. So I had to go to Jori first, and I in no way am trying to suggest that I'm more happy to see Jori than I am to see Frank, or in no way am I suggesting that I'm steering the conversation away from Frank because he's going to be gloating about the Broncos today. Frank, so gloat away, please. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes, quick victory lap. Go back Thursday's Inside Coverage. I told you that the Broncos being entirely disrespected by the world, that they would win straight up. And looky here, look what happens. The Broncos now kind of a stranglehold on the AFC West. I'm sure at some point, this week we'll be talking plenty about the Chiefs. The Chiefs are no guarantee to make the playoffs. Like, this is getting to almost critical mass with the Chiefs dynasty. But yes, quit disrespecting the Broncos, everybody. I don't care if their offense looks sloppy at times, as a really, really good football team.
Okay, so two things real quick. Number one, the Vegas line does not equal disrespect. Okay, the Vegas line is not disrespect. It's how you, Frank, you know this. It's how the book makes money. Okay, it's called balancing the betting. It is not disrespect. However, for 106 years, professional football teams have used the line, whether it comes from Vegas or from the dude behind the bar down the street, as a reason to be disrespected. So let them do it. To quote Mel Robbins, let them. It's fine. And number two, the Chiefs are done. Burnt ends. It is over. Right? They are burnt. They are cooked.
Okay.
Wow.
It is
Andrew,
over.
hot on
They
a
are
Monday.
not
Getting off spicy on a Monday.
to make the
Dunzo.
post season. They're 5-5.
Do you actually believe that,
schedule is
Andrew?
not their friend. I do believe that. I don't think they're going to make the postseason. This is not some hot take. I'm not trying to make a 45-second digestible clip so that the amazing Yahoo social team can now push this out. We'll take the single now, so we'll do it easy. They're not going to make the playoffs, okay? They're 5-5. Their DVOA is great, but they're losing all their one-score games. Last year, 10-0 in one-score games. This year, 0-5 in one-score games. Luck eventually comes back to the middle, and that is what it has done this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. And while I do believe that Patrick Mahomes can't be killed, I mean, in the football sense, and that he will never be dead, and that he will rise from the grave, he is the guy that comes back and gets you when there's that 4-minute everyone is happy scene at the end of the movie where you're going, wait a minute, did they really get him? Is it really over? And then he's going to come back. But I don't think that scene exists this year. I just don't. Can we do Jamar Chase first, though?
Yeah, I don't know. I still want to get in on this Chiefs dynasty is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't just say that. I mean, like, but we'll be back in a few with that. I think we might just
right. I will say this.
Okay, so
I will say
Madison,
this.
we're going to blow up the rundown, even though the group chat.
Real quick, Andrew, the Chiefs are 5-5. They're going to have to go 5-2 the rest of the way just to have a shot at this. So you might be right. Maybe. We'll see.
Okay, so let's unload on the Chiefs here. Here we go. Madison, we're arranging the rundown. You hate us again. With good reason. The Chiefs are the 9 seed. And they have lost to the teams in front of them, the 5, the 6, and the 7 seeds. Mm-hmm. The Bills, the Chargers, and the Jaguars. Now, granted, they play the Chargers again. It is a division game. And they play the Broncos again as well. That is a division game. And they play the 8 seed a team that is right now directly ahead of them, the Houston Texans in Week 14. Houston is a tough one this week, short week Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills. But the Chiefs ran the ball only 13 times on Sunday. That don't work. It simply does not work. They're not getting home with the blitzes. They're not stretching the field, at least not yesterday. Mahomes 1 of 6 down the field. Their DVOA is still strong. They came into the week at number 5 team DVOA, behind only Seattle, LA, Indy, and Detroit. But luck is not on their side this year. I know you make your own luck, Jori, but I don't know that there is enough time here to get lucky.
I think you make a fair point, Andrew. And while I'm not yet willing to go as far as you are to say they're not going to make the playoffs, I do think that today was the first day. This was the first week that I'm like, wait a minute. I still trust that they could beat most teams when they get to the playoffs, but are they going to get there? Because if not, it doesn't really matter what you can do when you get to the playoffs. Now at 5-5, they have lost 5 games before and made it all the way. Now in 2023, they went 11-6 and they won the Super Bowl. But they won 8 games before their 5th loss. In 2021, when they went to the conference championship, also with Patrick Mahomes, 12-5, but they won 11 before losing the 5th. And so it's not crazy that they lost 5 games. The problem is that they've already lost 5 games and are at 500. And as mentioned, that division is going to be tough. The Broncos are better than they've been in the Patrick Mahomes era. And so I think there was a period of time this season where we said, okay, well, the Chiefs are going to figure it out, but by the playoffs, they'll be ready. And there'll be an off shot at the division lead, but they should at least be able to be okay for a wild card. And now I really don't think there's any reasonable chance, like, okay, maybe 10%, 20%, but there's no reasonable chance that they're winning the division. The Broncos should have an easy route to it, and the Chargers would be second, it seems. But I think that the wild card, it still feels like if you look at their schedule, they can figure it out. But Jonathan Taylor next weekend might be having me eat my words.
Yeah, I think that Colts game all of a sudden becomes like the referendum on are the Chiefs going to make the playoffs? Because, look, if they do win that game, they are at home, but the Colts coming off a bye and a very good team. If the Chiefs win that game, you probably also have to beat either the Broncos or the Chargers, which you probably do at home, at least one of them, maybe both. The rest of the schedule sets up pretty well for them. At the Cowboys, okay, it's Thanksgiving, but you should beat the Cowboys. Texans, you get them at home. Texans are very flawed. You have the Titans still. You're going to win that game. You have the Raiders still. You're going to win that game. So I can see them getting the 5 wins the rest of the way they need to get to 10 wins, which pretty much you have to get to in the AFC to get a wild card. But the tiebreakers are tough. The Jaguars win yesterday was not good for the Chiefs. Like if the Jaguars and Chiefs end up tying for the 7th seed, the Chiefs are out because they lost that game on Monday night. And so we start to play. I mean, it's early to be playing this game of like, oh, tiebreakers here, divisional record, and head-to-head. But that's where we're at with the Chiefs now. A lot of the projection systems still have the Chiefs at more than 50% to make the playoffs. DVOA has them, I believe, 61%. New York Times has them a little more than 50%. So a little bit better in a coin flip. But if you look at it on the other side of the coin, it's like, oh, there's like a 40 to 50% chance the Chiefs don't make the playoffs. Like who would have said that at the beginning of the season? I think that's the most shocking story of the NFL season so far, is not that the Colts are good or anything else that's happening. It's that the Chiefs are in real danger of missing the playoffs. Not just not winning the AFC West, which most people didn't think was possible, but missing the playoffs altogether. It's a little bit better in a coin flip that they make the playoffs at this point, which is just wild.
Yeah, and look at the standings as well there. I mean, we have the Patriots and the Colts sitting at the 2 and 3 seed in the AFC, which is just bonkers. Right now, opening weekend, wild card weekend, has Denver sitting at home on the couch watching the Jaguars go to New England, the Chargers go to Indy, and wait for it, the Bills go to Pittsburgh.
That ain't gonna happen.
Nobody would have given you that bracket.
Baltimore.
They would have given you Buffalo, and they would have given you the Chargers, and they would have given you the Broncos,
the Bills are going to Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore's getting that spot. That's fine. Bills, Ravens, first round. Sign me up for that right now, by the way.
Right. I'm just saying right now.
And hopefully we can all agree now that the Bengals are done. I don't think that's on there. Maybe that is done. We'll get there. Okay, I'm going to stop.
The Bengals are all but done. But yeah, listen, I realize this is a very dangerous hot take. Like I said, it's not even a hot take. And full disclosure, I've only watched the cut-ups of the Chiefs game. I was calling the always exciting Browns-Ravens game, where the Ravens swept the Browns for the first time since 2020. They had lost 3 out of 4 in Cleveland. The Browns and the Ravens had split 6 of 7 years, so the Ravens got their sweep yesterday, barely. Browns hung on for dear life. We'll get to Shedeur in a little bit. So I didn't watch all of the Broncos and the Chiefs. I just, 10 games in, you kind of know. A month ago, I was, full disclosure, one of these people that said, look out, here they come. They're going to win the division. Denver's going to falter, and nobody wants to play Kansas City. I still, and Jori, you kind of made this point as well, like who can they beat in the playoffs? Anybody. I still wouldn't want to play them in January.
Right.
But the odds are stacked against them to get to January right now, until, of course, they prove us wrong, which they inevitably will do. And then, of course, I will eat my words, and Frank can gloat. Yeah.
No, I've been there with the Chiefs many, many, many times, yes.
And it's worth noting that all of their losses this season are losses to current playoff teams. So Chargers, Eagles, Jaguars, Bills, and Broncos. And the Chargers and Eagles were the first couple weeks of the season. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Chargers and Jaguars, but they're not losing to bad teams. And some of those losses were also before they had the return of players, including Rashee Rice. And I think that's why I still have confidence that they can do it. Now, they don't have a margin for error. I think in a usual season, you want to be able to lose 1 or 2 games that you shouldn't later in the season and it not impact whether you're going to make the playoffs at all. But I don't think that this is a Chiefs team that's all of a sudden not good. They might just have lost too many at the beginning of the year. And oh, by the way, like, Rashee Rice's suspension could end up being the difference of whether or not they make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it's amazing, too, the difference in 5-5 between the AFC West and the AFC North. Ravens get to 5-5, and we're about to give them a parade. Oh, they won the division. They got to 5-5. It is over in the AFC North, people think, because the Ravens got to 500. Okay, speaking of the AFC North, it is all but over, and I hate to say this, for the Cincinnati Bengals. They are 3-7. Joe Flacco throws a pick 6. They lose badly to the Steelers yesterday in Pittsburgh. They don't get the sweep, and they don't really stay in the race to get to 4-6 in the AFC North, potentially 1 game back in the win column with Joe Burrow maybe coming back on Thanksgiving. And then we find out late this afternoon that Ja'Marr Chase, not surprisingly, is suspended for spitting on Jalen Ramsey. It happened in the fourth quarter. Everybody saw Ramsey throw a punch, get in Ja'Marr Chase's face. Afterwards, he accused Chase of spitting on him. Chase vehemently denied it. And then we saw the clear video. It was one magic loogie. It was right out of Seinfeld. There is a Zapruder film there of that magic loogie. And because of it, Chase was suspended. Here is Ja'Marr after the game yesterday, denying it.
Walk us through what happened with Jalen.
Exchanging words.
He was saying that you spit on him. Did you spit on him?
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy.
What do you think prompted the reaction from him?
Well, he don't like some of the words I told him. We've been going back and forth the whole time, so I'm sure some got under his skin.
So it was building the whole game. It just wasn't on that drive.
The first time we had a altercation, and then it was the second time.
Is that the first time in your career anybody's ever punched you in a game?
You seen me get punched?
Looked like you threw a punch.
So, just to be clear, you did not spit on him at all. That's what he's saying.
I ain't spit on nobody.
How frustrating? About the game, how frustrating is this loss given what y'all wanted, what y'all want to do in the North? Come out and lose it?
It's hard knowing how hard we work for practice and coming in here and not executing to our best ability. We gotta do better as a team.
All right, so some notes from that. First of all, Ja'Marr Chase is a 2 iPhone guy. There are 2 iPhones up there on the shelf. That's interesting there. Number 2, does he think that there aren't high-definition cameras, many of them, at these games?
He said, you saw me get punched?
Yeah. All right, you saw me get punched? Yeah, everyone did. That's why you got ejected, Ja'Marr. Like, it was on video, and everyone saw it. Jalen Ramsey threw a punch, and he got ejected. Now, clearly, Ramsey had taken a cheap shot earlier in the game, and I could argue that he took another cheap shot on T. Higgins on a first quarter touchdown as well, 5 yards into the end zone after he had clearly caught the ball. He had scored, and Ramsey gave him a little chicken wing there. Not truly dirty, but unnecessary, I would argue. And I would also argue there's no way, Jori, that Ja'Marr Chase is going to win his appeal. It's on video. Spit comes from his mouth, and it isn't a little spittle. It is a big loogie. And I'll also argue this. The Bengals' next four are the Patriots, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Ravens. I'll say that again. Patriots, Ravens, Bills, Ravens. Do you need to look in the mirror and have a difficult conversation about telling Joe Burrow it isn't worth it? To quote Ricky Waters, for who, for what? Like, why?
I love Ricky.
Why come back on a painful toe injury as we try to build an orthotic that will allow you to play football? Ja'Marr Chase, without him, you're not beating the Patriots this week, and you're going to be 3-8, and then come back and play the Ravens on a cold Thanksgiving night, followed by the Bills and the Ravens again. Is that worth it?
It's a great question, Andrew, and I think there's a few points here. First of all, credit to Ja'Marr Chase. He denied that he spit, but he also wouldn't acknowledge the punch. So I feel like he was an equal opportunity denier, that he's like, kind of what happens on the field stays on the field. No punch, no spit. Did you see I got punched? I didn't see me get punched, which I don't know if you see yourself get punched. But I will say that everything was kind of like that. I think it's interesting. I was at the season opener this year when the Eagles played the Cowboys at the beginning of the game before he even played a snap. Eagles defensive tackle Jalen Carter spit on Dak Prescott after Dak had kind of spit towards the ground a little bit away from Jalen, and it was a whole thing of who spit where and what that mattered. And the problem here for the NFL in upholding Ja'Marr Chase's suspension is that Jalen Carter was ejected for the entire game and later fined a game check. And they said that's because he was serving a 1-game suspension, but he already served it, so it's fine. We're not going to have him suspended a game. But the NFL said then, hey, we've told you we want to crack down on taunting. We are going to enforce it, and you have to lose a full game and a full game check. So if they do not have the same rule for Ja'Marr Chase spitting on someone, then there's going to be a lot of questions about are they being fair? Are they being consistent? And fairness and consistency are the two things that they strive for in their officiating and the way that they uphold officiating. Had Jalen Carter not spit on Dak week 1 and they not quite established that precedent, I think that there would have been a different chance for Ja'Marr Chase's appeal, because then you have some back and forth and you can say, well, I mean, Jalen Ramsey was only suspended for basically a quarter because this happened at the beginning of the fourth quarter as opposed to week 1 when this was at the beginning of the game. So I should be suspended a quarter the way that he was. Now, obviously, one spit, one punched, or maybe neither happened if you listen to Ja'Marr. But I think the point being that this is really about what happened week 1 with Jalen Carter. And because of that, the NFL is not going to allow the rule to change this quickly. Now, the last thing I'll say is I want to know what you guys think. And do we need to actually have a rule in the NFL rulebook around spitting? Currently, we have the idea of there shall be no, I'm reading from the rulebook, there shall be no unsportsmanlike conduct. This applies to any act which is contrary to the generally understood principles of sportsmanship. And then they go on to mention things and they say it doesn't require contact. So obviously spitting, like there's no physical contact, hand to hand, skin to skin. And it also talks about gestures that are insulting. So I'm curious, like there's a general rule surrounding this, but given we've now seen this multiple times in a season and it's costing teams games and it's costing players game checks, do we need to have a specific rule of what does it mean to spit on someone during a game? Does the spit have to land on them? Does it have to be intentional? Like this seems to be becoming a thing.
I think so. I think that there should be a rule. Like this is like if you are going to crack down on stuff like taunting and sportsmanship, and I think some of it's ridiculous. Some of the taunting calls this year are just like, come on, whatever. But spitting on a dude, yeah, that's way out of the line for Ja'Marr Chase. I do wonder, had the refs caught him and he was ejected, kind of what you were talking about, Jori, would he be suspended this week or would it be a time served type of thing? But I'm not going to sit here and feel bad for Ja'Marr Chase. That is awful behavior. Like you just can't. There are certain things on NFL field you cannot do, and that is one of them. It's just absolutely disrespectful. I don't care what Jalen Ramsey was doing before then. It's just so out of bounds. And they probably will put a rule in because why not? It sends a message. I think the suspension sends a message. Like, don't do this. We're done with this. Okay? Like, we're suspending one of the best players in the NFL for a game when their team is in survival mode because this is just unacceptable. And to get back, I do want to touch on Andrew's point too about Joe Burrow. I keep going back and forth. The Bengals are cooked. They're done. Like, they needed to win at Pittsburgh to have any shot. Even if they did win, they still have that terrible defense. Now Chase is suspended, the tough schedule coming up. But I do kind of think, like, if Burrow could play, he should play. Like, at some point, is what you're paid to do. I get looking forward to 2026. As long as the training staff signs off on, look, the chances of re-injury, they're not zero, but they're pretty low. There's risk always when you play an NFL game. If that's the case, I think Burrow should play because players play. That's what you do. It doesn't matter your record or whatever, but it is going to have to be a conversation. At some point, the Bengals are going to have to sit down as a team and say, what is best for us going forward? And not just what's best for saving Zach Taylor's job or anything like that. What is the best for Cincinnati Bengals going forward? Is it having Joe Burrow play or not? But they're in this situation now. It's hard to see a path back to relevancy for the Bengals at 3-7.
I'm with you. I think he does have to play. I was just throwing it out there hypothetically. I don't know if it truly is worth it.
It's fair. It makes sense. Yeah.
I think they would have a hard time looking the face of the franchise in the face. Sounded redundant there, but it isn't. And saying, hey, we don't think you should play. He is as fiery a competitor, despite his calm demeanor on the podium, as anyone there is in the league. You can't tell him to sit down. And I do think that if you were to do that, you risk alienating him to the point where maybe in a year, Joe Burrow looks around and says, going back to Ricky Waters for who, for what, I don't know that I want to play here anymore. I'm not saying that's imminent. I'm not one of these, hey, let's call WFAN and make up a rumor that the Bengals are going to trade, or rather that the Jets are going to trade all their first-round picks that they just got for Joe Burrow. That's not happening, friends. Don't believe anybody that tells you that. It will not and cannot happen. But I don't want to alienate the guy. I need him. I need him on my side, recruiting and being the face of the franchise and selling tickets. And I'm not going to tell him, hey, Joe, why don't you just go home and play the piano? Because we know that you really do enjoy playing the piano now. That's just me. The other injury in the AFC North is Aaron Rodgers' left wrist. There's a chance for surgery. Rodgers is trying to fight through it. But if he does need surgery, that likely knocks him out for at least 1 week. Again, left wrist, he fell, he got hit, he was bracing himself, and then he left the game. Not his throwing wrist, for whatever that is worth. Michael Penix is done for the season, it seems. He has yet another injury. Reportedly, there is some ACL damage. And, oh, don't worry, the Falcons could draft a quarterback next year. They're picking 8th as it stands right now at 3-7. Oh, yeah, the Rams own the Falcons' first-round pick because of that, even at the time, makes no sense move last year on draft night. So the Rams could win the Super Bowl and have the Falcons' first-round pick. And then there's the Lane Johnson injury as well, which, sure, you had the ridiculous stat on Lane Johnson here, the Eagles with and without him.
Yes, that was definitely a crazy stat. And we've kind of been seeing this each year, that Lane Johnson has an injury, of how often they're winning without him versus not. So since the start of the 2016 season, according to Zach Berman, a great Eagles beat writer, the Eagles are 96-41-1 when Lane Johnson starts. They're 12-23 when Lane Johnson does not start. So they win 70% of their games with him and 34% without them. Now, Fred Johnson, who they've gotten there, who's helping out with the offensive line, they played really well with him last season and this year. So I think that their reinforcements are better than they once were. But in terms of could the Eagles lose a game that's on the borderline, historically, Lane Johnson is a difference maker.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer is what he is. He's one of the best right tackles we've ever seen. Frank, Rodgers or Penix? Take your pick. Which one you want here?
I think the Penix injury is more interesting because, I mean, Rodgers is going to try to play through this thing. I don't know how that really goes for a 41-year-old with a broken wrist, but we'll see. Obviously, he knows he doesn't have many games left. I don't want to miss some time with a wrist injury. Penix is interesting because all of a sudden, Kirk Cousins comes in. Kirk Cousins does not look like a viable quarterback anymore, and he hasn't for a while. If the bottom really falls out with the Falcons here, this could change the entire franchise trajectory. I mean, at some point, Raheem Morris, if you go 6-11, 5-12, which is perfectly on the table right now for the Falcons. Do they have to make a change? And have they seen enough out of Michael Penix to really feel great about him going into 2026? And like you said, they don't even have the first round pick, so you can't do anything at quarterback if you're not sold on him. I think that's an injury that's just more interesting from a big picture, because the Falcons came into the season with high hopes, looked good at times. A win against Minnesota comes to mind. And now it's just like, oh, this could turn really, really bad by the end of the season and have one of those effects on the Falcons for years and years and years. If they get to the end and it's 5-12 and they decide, you know what, we just need to wipe the thing clean and start over again.
Yeah. And meantime, the Carolina Panthers, who beat the Falcons, are looking like a playoff team. Oh, is this thing on? A playoff team.
Playoffs.
Whereas the Falcons, playoffs. Not yet. Have lost 5 in a row. All right, a crazy thing happened in Cleveland yesterday. Shedeur Sanders got in a football game. It was kind of as expected. Coming up on Inside Coverage, why this whole thing about first-round reps is much ado about absolutely nothing. Don't go anywhere. It's Inside Coverage, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your Sunday on the couch, or maybe even at a stadium for week number 11, whether it was in Madrid or in Minnesota or in Cleveland where I was. Hi, I'm Andrew. Jori Epstein is here. Frank Schwab is here. Thank you for being here as well. I was ready. Guys, I have been ready for a couple of weeks now for the inevitable, okay, something happens. Dillon Gabriel rolls an ankle, takes a hard hit, has to go in the blue tent for whatever reason. Knew that Shedeur Sanders was the next man up and he was going to get his shot. The way this unfolded yesterday was unexpected, to say the least. The Browns are standing on their head defensively. Devin Bush has a pick 6. Myles Garrett has a hat trick of sacks in the first half on Lamar Jackson. They're doing the thing. And then you come out for the third quarter and you look down there and Shedeur has his helmet on. And guys, where is Dillon Gabriel? And all of a sudden we hear from the sideline, Dillon Gabriel is in concussion protocol. And I said on the radio, hey, everybody, buckle up. Here it is. Here it comes. Shedeur runs in, and he kind of starts doing this. I'm motioning here with my hand, like asking for the cheer. I cannot tell you guys how crazy loud it got at Huntington Bank Field. There were people, I'm told, on the concourse, in the club level, in the suites, in the clubs, sprinting back to their seats, to the point where some people got concerned, like, what's going on? Is something bad happening? Because it's almost, it's like a stampede. All the fans there wanted to see it. It got so loud that when Shedeur does this for the crowd, the offensive linemen immediately start doing this, going, no, shut up. Because we've got to get the play call out and get to the line. Frank, you're closing your eyes. I swear that's what happened. Shedeur does this, and Jack Conklin's doing this. Anyway, long story short, for his first snap, he rolls right, throws a little 5-yard hitch to Cedric Tillman. The place went nuts. It wasn't 2018 Baker in primetime leading him to a victory and unlocking the coolers nuts. But it went nuts. And then, the inevitable happened, and that is 4-16, 47 yards, and he kind of reverted to the old Shedeur Sanders. And that is running backwards and taking sacks and, the big delivery and the big hitch and the double clutching and all the reasons you saw in college football that he fell to pick 144, you saw again in this game. But there are so many caveats here. To be fair, he wasn't getting first-team reps because that's not what the number 2 quarterback does in the NFL. Go look at Luke McCown or Chase McDaniel or listen to Brady Quinn on his radio show. Anybody who has been in that world will tell you that Kevin Stefanski is not doing him dirty. He has a rookie backing up a rookie, and this is simply how the NFL operates. You don't develop the number 2 quarterback with equal reps during the week. It doesn't work that way. To make it worse, Shedeur's thrown in against the Ravens. And Zach Orr is going to empty the quiver here. He's going to go cover 0, and if he had 15 in the box, he's going to put 15 in the box. And Shedeur has no idea where the blitz is coming from, and it showed. Yet still at the end, he made a couple of throws, and they're in Ravens territory with a chance to win it before turning it over on downs. He's going to be the quarterback this week if Gabriel is still in concussion protocol. I want Dylan to be okay, but I'm also excited to see him play with a full week, Jori, of prep. Both, as I like to say in my relationship over the years, both can be true.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you pointed out the first team reps element, because I think on the note of both things can be true, it can be true that Shedeur did not have the maximal preparation set up to allow him to succeed against the Ravens in the best scenario. And also that pretty much nobody does, unless maybe if you're a first round rookie. And so to say like, oh, that's not his NFL debut because, you know, he didn't anticipate that and the Browns didn't anticipate that. Well, most debuts are not anticipated if you're not a high draft pick. And sometimes even then. And so I think when you look at it, I talked to people from 3 different teams around the league, and they were all on coaching staffs and had currently been with one team, previously been with other teams. And I said, you know, do you ever see the second team quarterback get reps with the first team during the week, particularly in season? And all of them conclusively said no. It wasn't like, oh, you get 5 reps or 10 reps. It was, no, you don't get any reps with the first team because there's not enough to go around. Some of the coaches I talked to have been coaching long enough that, hey, when they started, there were more reps already for the first team guys. So they feel like there's fewer now. And if you're the third team quarterback, which Shedeur was for a portion of this season, you're probably not getting that many scout team reps either. So yes, if Shedeur's throwing to a guy like Gage Larvadain, who, I mean, the day I was at Browns minicamp, and Andrew, you were there too, he had a great throw to Gage. Like, yes, there is going to be a degree to which he understands Gage, and he might not understand Jerry Jeudy the same way. But I think there were some around the league who were like, we don't think it's fair for the coaching staff to be criticized for this. And they did feel like Shedeur was somewhat contributing to that. Now, fair or unfair, there's some who felt that way, some who didn't, because they're like, this is completely normal. And if anything, it would be more common to criticize the coaching staff for not fully preparing the starter. And that would be if a veteran was starting. So forget the fact that this is 2 rookies. That's what I was trying to understand is, was this just about developing Dylan Gabriel? And it's not about that. It's no matter who the guy is, even if Joe Flacco's still in there, you just don't give your backup snaps, or your first team snaps, I should say, to your backup quarterback.
Yeah, it's Dylan Gabriel is ahead of Shedeur Sanders of the pecking order, and he has been since draft day. And so why would you stunt Dylan Gabriel's growth by taking reps away from him? That just doesn't happen. On top of everything you just said, Jori, second string guys don't get reps. Now, Shedeur Sanders was not prepared properly for this experience, this debut, but that was inevitable. Like, when you go into a game like that, you are not going to have the practice reps you need to succeed. And that is not the coaching staff somehow wanting Shedeur Sanders to fail, which is coming up again, which I find absolutely ridiculous, because why would Kevin Stefanski want Shedeur Sanders to fail? You're telling me that he wants the offense to not do well and they blow a game they could have won against the Ravens? Like, that doesn't help Kevin Stefanski in any way. No. It's just ridiculous conspiracy theories. But Shedeur Sanders wasn't like, it was an impossible spot for him to be in. Like you said, Andrew, he's going against the Ravens, who are a really well-coached team. He's coming in cold. He hasn't had reps. He was bound to fail like this. I don't hold it against Shedeur. Like, no, he didn't look good, but this was a very tough spot for him to go in. It was going to be a tough spot for any backup quarterback making his debut like this. Like, hey, kid, go do your best. That's anybody. That's not Shedeur Sanders. That's literally any number 2 quarterback in the NFL who hasn't played yet. Like, that's going to happen. And so but this is the mania. Like, this is why teams passed on Shedeur Sanders in the draft, because something very common happens where literally any backup quarterback in the NFL is not going to be fully prepared to go into a game cold. That's just the way it is. You don't, as Tom Moore, the old offensive line coach of the Colts, a great line that I've heard repeated a lot of times. I didn't hear him say it, but I hope this is correct because it's a great line. Somebody asked, like, why don't you get anybody but Peyton Manning reps in practice? And Tom Moore replies, well, because if Peyton goes down, we're effed, and we don't practice effed. Mm-hmm. That's a great line. Like, the backup quarterbacks, but this is a common thing in the NFL, absolutely common. And yet the coaching staff is just getting, Kevin Stefanski wants Shedeur to fail. He's not getting any reps. That's the circus people didn't want to sign up for. When he went into the game, look, I didn't realize Dylan Gabriel got hurt I'm sitting there watching 8-2 teams, 7-2 teams play in Los Angeles, the Seahawks and the Rams. I'm watching the Chiefs dynasty maybe dying, according to Andrew Siciliano, on one screen. I'm focused on those games. All of a sudden, I look, and number 12's coming into the game for the Browns, and I realize at that moment, the NFL world is stopping because we're all going to be watching not these two playoff level games. We're all watching Shedeur Sanders. And again, I'm bringing this up for the 8 millionth time. I've not seen anything like this in all my years covering the NFL except Tim Tebow. That is the only one that applies where it's just the amount of attention to that player is just crazy to me. But I get it. Shedeur is this charismatic dude. But this is why a lot of teams didn't want to sign up for this sideshow. It's just, it's hard for Kevin Stefanski and the Browns to navigate.
Yeah, and I said that on the air, guys, like, buckle up. Everyone buckle up. Like, here, like the horses left the barn. Here we go. Buckle up. And he had him in position there at the end. And he made a great pass to Gage Larvin in the back of the end zone on the run, moving to his left. He laid it out there. That's his he throws a better deep ball than he does an intermediate ball. And I've seen that with my own two eyes. He throws a better deep ball than he does the short stuff. And he laid it out there. Larvin came back for the football. Larvin's a 5'8" rookie. And he had his hands on it. I thought he had it. Give Chidobe Awuzie, a veteran corner, credit. He pulled the ball out. He made a really good play. The previous play, Shedeur had Isaiah Bond on the end line, and he just missed him.
Can you imagine?
And that was almost
if he hit that pass? Wow.
That wow moment. Honestly, I think they would have gone for 2. I don't know that for certain if they had scored there because they weren't getting back down there. They were not moving the football. Combined, those two quarterbacks had 115 yards passing. That's it. Jori, go ahead. Sorry, cut you off.
Yeah, I think 2 notes are important. One, I would say that while you can question and we can question and should question what Shedeur did on the field yesterday, I do want to give him a little bit of credit because he was asked about hearing the fans when he came in for the game, and he wasn't asked about what the fans were doing with Dillon Gabriel. He specifically was asked about how excited they were for him, and he did add, by his own choice, when he wasn't asked about it, basically telling the fans, stop booing Dillon Gabriel. It's not good for his confidence. It's not good for our team. I appreciate the support, but don't boo him. And when I was listening back to his press conference, I hadn't seen that quote yet, and I appreciated that he did that because, hey, if he's got that charisma that people might listen to him, all the more reason to support his teammate. The other thing I think is interesting, going back to the idea of does your second string quarterback get reps with the first team, this isn't just a quarterback question. This is kind of the way that the NFL prepares, and what you guys were saying about, like, if we lose Peyton Manning, we're effed. I mean, I had someone tell me recently that their GM often asks, why don't bad teams spend some of the time that they would otherwise allocate to 1st and 10 practicing 3rd and 7? Because they're going to be in 3rd and 7 a lot, but they're not practicing as much as they are their 1st and 10 plays. And I think it's kind of this idea of, like, it makes a lot of sense. And granted, the executive and the GM were actually one of the better teams now, and they don't need to be practicing 3rd and 7. They're not getting in it quite much. But I think it's really interesting to consider just generally, if you're a coach, you want to prepare for those worst case or less ideal scenarios, but also you don't want to tell your team, hey, I don't have enough confidence that you're going to be able to avoid those scenarios. So a lot of this is a balancing act, not only in terms of actual technique preparation, but also in terms of the psychological preparation.
It's funny, Frank, you mentioned the Peyton Manning, Tom Moore story. I actually had a conversation with somebody in the Browns building a couple of weeks ago because they're not dressing an emergency 3. Bailey Zappe's on the practice squad. He can't be the emergency 3. Matter of fact, there are some people that have argued, and I've been one of them, that they should make Shedeur the emergency 3 and Zappe the 2, which is, it's just a roster management thing. Because in a situation like yesterday, Bailey Zappe, as a veteran, laugh all you want, guys. You could scream and yell at me all you want. He's a veteran who's won some games. He's actually won a game in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. No other Browns quarterback on the roster has done that the last 20 years. And that he could get you through a game if Gabriel got hurt like yesterday. And then on Monday, you go back to the office and say, let's give Shedeur the full week. He's the next man up. But that's not what they did. And they had Sanders as the number 2. And I asked the question, like, if you're not going to dress an emergency 3, like, who would it be? And the answer is, like, tight end Blake Whiteheart in actuality. And I said, well, like, is there a package of plays for Blake Whiteheart? And the answer was basically what Frank said about Tom Moore. Right. At that point.
By the way, I don't root for Dillon Gabriel to miss any time with injury, of course.
No one does.
But I do want to see Shedeur Sanders with a full week of practice.
Yes.
Nobody
Both
should be piling on Shedeur Sanders. Just like I'm like, it's ridiculous to rip Kevin Stefanski. Nobody should be piling on Shedeur Sanders either. Yeah, he's 4'16". He was in an impossible situation. Let's get him a week full of real reps. And like you said, psychologically prepare for this moment. Then we can get a fair look at Shedeur. Sunday wasn't fair. 4'16" is like, you had no chance. Like, it's just, you did your best. If he would have hit that touchdown to Bond, the place would have gone crazy, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get, at some point this season, I think it's going to happen if it's not this week, a full week of reps, a full week of preparation, and let's see what Shedeur Sanders can really do on an NFL field.
So let's go back to both things are true. It wasn't necessarily a fair setup. Life isn't fair. But that doesn't mean it was unfair because of somehow setting him up to fail, like some kind of coaching or organizational malfeasance or mismanagement. That's insane. And if there are people on your television or in your social media feed trying to convince you that there's some conspiracy against him organizationally to hope that he fails, they are not serious people. They're not. Don't take them seriously. They're selling you a bill of goods. They are trolling you. They are not serious people. Can reasonable people disagree as to the right way to handle this situation? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if someone is attempting to tell you that this player is being set up to fail because it's personal and they want him to fail, really? Like, no. They are not serious people, and you are being trolled. That's it. Jori.
I think a question I want to ask you guys, though, is, to me, the Browns' job, obviously I'm not saying they're going to be throwing games, and clearly that defense is so good that they're going to continue to win, and it's frustrating to not win, et cetera, et cetera. But a key goal for the rest of the season for the Browns is, what do you have in your quarterback room right now, and what does that mean come time for the draft? Do you have what you need? Do you think you have a chance in having what you need? And based off that, how are you going to approach the draft with a lot of draft capital? My problem is, okay, let's say Shedeur Sanders starts this coming week against the Raiders. Well, the Raiders are a 2-win team. We'll see after Monday Night Football if they're 2 wins or 3 wins, but they're one of the worst teams in the league. Their offense isn't going to put up much of a fight. I mean, the defense is fine, but I just kind of think that when you look at this, you say you're trying to assess 2 different quarterbacks, but you're not controlling for your variables. It's not just quarterback versus quarterback. It's, well, was Kevin Stefanski calling the plays or was Tommy Rees calling the plays? Were you playing against the Baltimore Ravens or were you playing against the Las Vegas Raiders? Where was the rest of the team in this? And so I recognize that the same way we said life isn't fair, none of these comparisons are ever going to be fair. But I'm not trying to take away from Shedeur Sanders if he starts against the Raiders and has a great game. Obviously, that should win him another week if he plays really well. But I do think that I would have trouble if I am the front office in terms of comparing, if I am only considering the outcome as opposed to how is the decision making, how are they doing in the reads. So I'm curious what you guys think about that, of can we actually assess fairly Dylan versus Shedeur based off Shedeur against a team like the Raiders?
It's a great question, and you're going to have more of a sample size for Sanders, and then eventually sit back and look at all the data and compare and contrast and lay out everything that you just laid out. Yesterday was Dylan Gabriel's 6th start. Even though he didn't play the second half, the way we keep records in the NFL, he is now 1-5. Not all his fault, certainly. What's frustrating here is that Myles Garrett is putting in a Hall of Fame season. He's already going to the Hall of Fame. This quite possibly is his greatest season. His numbers are so far and beyond better right now through 10 games than the numbers he had in his 2023 DPOY season, that if they were winning games, if they were in the AFC North conversation, which is a couple more victories, he would be in the MVP conversation, Frank, because he led the league with 22 TFLs last year. He already has 22 TFLs, and he is on pace to break the single-season sack record. He's on pace to shatter it and to get to 25.
It's unbelievable. I mean, he needs 8 sacks in 7 games to break the record. I wasn't aware. I knew he was on an absolute tear, but you stop and look and you're like, This dude has 15 sacks in 10 games.
He has 10 in the last 3 games.
He's playing unbelievable football. Unbelievable. He's going to run away with Defensive Player of the Year. I don't care what the Browns record is. And all these people who are like, who cares? They lost. Like, no, he's unbelievable. He had such a great game yesterday. I mean, when you could bottle up Lamar Jackson like they did, like that's just a heck of a defense. And I want bad. Like, I feel like I said the same thing, just insert Joe Thomas's name into it. I want so badly for Myles Garrett to make a deep playoff run at some point in his career because he deserves it. He is one of the all-time greats. And like you said, if the Browns were a playoff team, I'd probably be sitting here on a Tuesday doing my dumb thing about non-quarterbacks winning MVP with Myles Garrett and saying, like, why isn't he getting enough respect with that?
I'm glad you mentioned that MVP
TFLs.
Note, Frank, because I do think that that's actually relevant to me. Of like, for me, the MVP has to be the value relative to them winning the game, but Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year and All Pro, that doesn't necessarily have to be. So I do think that, like, to me, he's not currently a viable MVP candidate to me because they haven't been winning games. I recognize it's not just about him, but in terms of Defensive Player of the Year, when his stats are just so far beyond what anyone else in his peer group is doing, then I do think that's very reasonable.
And Carson Schlesinger, I was on a flight with his folks this morning, lovely people. Carson Schlesinger is your Defensive Rookie of the Year. You could buy your ticket, Carson, to San Francisco right now. You'll be up on the podium Thursday, the night before the Super Bowl, as he got 10 more tackles yesterday and his second pick in 3 weeks. All right, coming up next, Kevin O'Connell had it with JJ McCarthy. And was Abdul Carter asleep? He says no. We'll tell you what the heck we're talking about on Inside Coverage. It is Inside Coverage in Yahoo. Andrew Siciliano and Jori Epstein and Frank Schwab wrapping up Week 11, in which the Chicago Bears rallied inside of a minute remaining. They get a Devin Duvernay kick return. Kevin O'Connell is apoplectic on the sideline. And then Cairo Santos hits a game-winning field goal, and the Bears win again. The Bears would win the NFC North if the season were to end today, which, everyone with me at the same time, it does not. However, the flip side of that is that, as Frank has been saying for weeks now, he doesn't think JJ McCarthy is any good. I want to show the kid some grace and give him a little bit more time. But O'Connell today was going through, Frank, on the podium the morning after, all the little mechanical things that he is working with McCarthy to try to fix. Accuracy is a big issue. And you see the frustration there, both on the field and on the sideline from Justin Jefferson. You have all these pieces in a Brian Flores defense that is playing well. You just need the quarterback to do the job. And right now, McCarthy is not doing the job.
Yeah, and look, it's 5 starts. I'm not trying to bury him yet and call him a bust. It's too early. I know that, but he has not played well, period. End of story. And yesterday he missed so many passes that are just like, okay, those are common NFL passes you have to make. If you're a starting NFL quarterback, it just has to happen. And he just missed over and over and threw some bad interceptions. And it was just, wow. If I was a Vikings, I'd be pretty worried. I can't lie. Like, I'm not saying you have to be who you are within the first 5 games of your career, but you want to see something. You want to see some signs. And other than that fourth quarter against the Bears all the way back in week 1, there really hasn't been much. There hasn't been much to hang your hat on and say, yeah, we think there's something there. There's a spark. It's pretty ugly. And I mean, to your point about Justin Jefferson, I saw this note come across from the Minneapolis media. I wish I knew who to cite it right now, but saying that Justin Jefferson did not speak to reporters yesterday after the game. First time they can remember him ever doing that. That speaks volumes. JJ's kind of fed up. And honestly, if you can't get the ball to Justin Jefferson, yeah, that's not a good sign for you as a quarterback. Like, getting JJ the ball 10 times should not be that big of an issue because everybody else can. I just worry that this is just a path the Vikings are going down that's not going to get much better. I hope so, because I like good quarterback play in the NFL, and I had high hopes for McCarthy coming into the season and the Vikings too. It's just not happening yet. It's kind of ugly there right now.
And it's interesting because I think that we tend to consider quarterbacks and say, oh, well, Kevin O'Connell can figure it out. And there is a point at which Kevin O'Connell does elevate every quarterback, but you need to be doing certain things as the quarterback yourself. And Kevin O'Connell talked on Monday about, like, look, it's not just about what other teams are doing. JJ McCarthy's inconsistency with his technique in certain ways have been making it harder for himself. So I think that JJ can develop, but don't view this as his sophomore year. View this as his rookie year. He couldn't practice this technique and practice the footwork that Kevin O'Connell likes in his offensive system while he was injured and rehabbing last year. And so I think, to me, the question is not, oh, are we done with JJ McCarthy? Can he not become something? It's just that we live in a world where everyone is expected to perform right away and be ready right away and not really have the time to develop that, say, the Packers gave to Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. And JJ McCarthy might be more in a developmental stage than he is in a ready-to-win-now stage, which is difficult when the entire rest of the cast around him on both offense and defense is in a win-now caliber system.
Yeah, and consider the fact that the Bears are winning. They have Ben Johnson and Caleb who's put it together, and they have an opportunistic defense here that is forcing turnovers. And also look at the schedule. You know, for the Vikings now, you go to Green Bay, and then you go to Seattle. That is not an easy next couple of games, and you could be looking at a longer winning streak or longer losing streak rather, and have your team buried basically at Thanksgiving. They have a massive hole to dig themselves out of now, and we don't think it is going to happen. But Jori, to your point, and the last time I was around the Vikings was back week 5 in London, spoke to multiple people on their staff, and they made the same point you did. Mental reps are one thing, physical reps are another. He had no physical reps last year. And you can say Mahomes learned and Aaron Rodgers learned, and all these quarterbacks can learn by taking their rookie year off and watching a veteran. Well, McCarthy was doing that, but he wasn't taking any of his learning to the practice field and getting reps, whether they be scout team reps or second team reps or even extra work after practice with anyone, because he was not healthy enough to practice. And we also live in this world too, Frank, back to your point about judging if it's only been 5 games, of instant gratification by the rookie quarterbacks. And we need to make up our minds quickly, because teams are in a model the model that everyone is trying to win with, many teams are, is get the amazing rookie that can carry us on the rookie contract, the quarterback, and then spend money around that rookie quarterback until I've got to pay him in year 4, or the Dolphins' case, year 5, write a massive check, and now my business model changes. So JJ McCarthy in year 2, the Vikings have got to know. They do. Like Michael Penix, year 2, they've got to know. And if you don't know heading into year number 3, you're kind of in no man's land, and you're forced to stick with the guy. And if it doesn't work and you want to be patient, even though no organization truly can and is patient these days, you're kind of stuck. And that's where the Vikings are, and they got to figure it out now, the second half of the season. Jori, let's get to the game that you were writing about. That'd be the Giants and the Packers. I thought Jordan Love, the guy we just mentioned, played a fantastic game. It was maybe one of his best games of the year. He made throws downfield. He made throws when the team needed him. And the defense, Micah Parsons notably, stepped up when it had to do its job as well and ruined the Jameis Winston party, which I was here for. That was going to be my early window. Watch Jameis Winston get a smile on my face and then call a Browns victory. I didn't get either.
Yeah, and to be clear, Jameis actually played pretty well. Now, I'm not saying he didn't get a little bit of luck with how many potential interceptions the Packers dropped, but Jameis and the Giants looked better than I was expecting, given the Giants were without their first-team coach, you could say, without their first-team quarterback, without their first team, I keep saying that, we're in Shedeur Sanders, without their top quarterback, receiver, running back, and coach starting this season, the Giants actually still had some degree of offense. Now, on the Packers side, Matt LaFleur had gotten a lot of criticism coming out of the Monday night game against the Philadelphia Eagles, particularly because the past 2 games and losses to the Panthers and then the Eagles, the Packers had 7 and 13 points on offense. And so you're like, okay, well, that's not going to win games. And now they get 27 points in this win. 5 of their wins this season have come with exactly 27 points. But to me, it wasn't just that the offense kind of got a little bit of a spark, which it did. It was also that Matt LaFleur was doing this without some of his players. So Jordan Love actually suffered an injury to his left shoulder in the first quarter. He was scrambling, kind of lowered his shoulder and got hit on the tackle pretty hard, goes to the blue medical tent, has to go to the locker room. Malik Willis comes in. Well, the Packers still finished that drive with a touchdown by Malik Willis. So now you're saying, okay, well, Matt LaFleur, this play caller, we've all been questioning this last week. Well, he figured out a touchdown drive without a starting quarterback. Then it turns out on that same drive, Josh Jacobs got hurt, their top running back. Now, 24 touchdowns on offense before this game. All of them came with either Jordan Love or Josh Jacobs involved. So these were the guys who were scoring. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, Emmanuel Wilson, we trusted him in the locker room after. Like, shout out to the teammates. I appreciate you standing with your guy. But when I went back, because I'm like, did I miss something? Like maybe he had a couple bright moments. Now, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but all of their rushing touchdowns were with Josh Jacobs. Then they lose Josh Jacobs. Well, they still got a rushing touchdown with Emmanuel Wilson. And then you get to the end of the game when they really needed to show that they could separate. You have Jordan Love on 3rd and 10, stand in the pocket for, it was like 6 seconds, make this awesome throw to Savion Williams, who wasn't even necessarily going to play because of an ankle injury. He catches that, and then Jordan Love shortly after finds Christian Watson on a touchdown. And so after weeks of the Packers saying, hey, we as an offense are not doing our part, we're letting the defense down, the offense were the ones who really kept them in the game while the defense was struggling with Jameis Winston. And then after the offense got them to 27 points, the defense got a couple of stops and an Evan Williams interception followed by a Micah Parsons strip sack. So I actually talked to Micah Parsons in the locker room after the game, and I'm like, is it a little weird to you, given where you guys are in the playoff hunt, where you guys are with your winning record, that you're getting these questions about Matt LaFleur, contract or not? And oh, by the way, it's not even the last year of his contract. And Micah's like, look, when I was in Dallas, I saw the same thing with Mike McCarthy. I'm used to this. This is just how the world is. But we as players want to step up and win for our coaches. When we hear that, we want the coaches to put us in the right position. And so it did not feel like a Packers locker room that's panicking. The only reason I would say for concern is that they're in a really good division, but I expect the Packers to make the playoffs.
I expect them to make it too, but it's week after week of when is that Packers team from weeks 1 and 2 going to show up? Like, good win. Look, any road win in the NFL is hard. I get that. But at the end of the day, they're playing a Giants team on its 3rd quarterback who just fired its head coach, and they're losing with 5 minutes to go in the game. And it's just like barely beating Arizona because you get a 4th down, or they're just getting by. And I just keep wondering, and injuries have a part in that too. And they do have the talent to get back to that level we saw early in the season. But I'm sitting here week after week watching the Packers going, okay, when is that coming? When is that elite team going to show up? Because an elite team, a really, really good football team, should not be just messing around with the Giants, Jameis Winston, with 4 minutes left in the game. Like, I just keep that. And that's why the questions are showing up with Matt LaFleur. We've talked about this. Matt LaFleur is not their biggest problem. He should not be fired. This is ridiculous. But at the same time, I'm just so lukewarm on this Packers team, because every week it's like, oh, okay, they barely beat this really bad team. I guess good. Okay. But when are they going to hit the next level? And I just don't know if it's going to show up for them.
Packers this week get the Vikings again. That game is at Lambeau. Then they go to Detroit, home for Chicago. So a 3-game NFC North stretch here at Denver, at Chicago, home for Baltimore, and then the Vikings again to end the season. So the Packers certainly have a number of NFC North games still remaining here as they get a win, bouncing back after the loss to the Eagles and all those questions to LaFleur on Monday night. I mentioned Abdul Carter here. He did not play in the first quarter of the game. Mike Kafka said, we had to sit him down. Team issue. Report this morning in the New York Daily News, I believe, that said Carter missed the walkthrough because he was in the building sleeping. He took to Twitter, or X, I've heard it both ways, to push back and say that he was in the building, but he wasn't sleeping. He was doing rehab. He was doing recovery. Nonetheless, though, he takes the blame. He says that's on me. Now, going back to both can be true. Was he doing his rehab and recovery and also nodding off? I don't care. He got sat down. He doesn't have a lot of sacks. Last check, he had half a sack.
Half a sack.
He's got a lot of pressures. Jori, go ahead. You look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I actually say kudos to Mike Kafka for doing this. So I had heard about this before it kind of became public, and I did hear that he was in treatment. So again, maybe sleeping in treatment. I also think it's worth noting, and I'm not trying to defend the guy, he missed what he needed to be at, that the Giants changed their schedule last week. They changed which day's the off day. They changed when they were doing walkthroughs. And so he had a schedule change and did not adjust his treatment accordingly. So he missed it. And Mike Kafka's like, you can't keep doing this. But it wasn't like this standing meeting that they'd had all season. It was something that was at a different time, is my understanding. And so I think, to me, what I like about this is I have heard from teams who have first round picks in recent years. And I mean, you can say this generation of players, I don't want to sound too old here, but there are players who come here and they've had the NIL money in a way that the previous generation of players hadn't. They're not necessarily in the exact same mindset when they get to the NFL. And so there are some discipline issues. There are some guys who don't want to practice as much, who don't want to be as fastidious on getting to meetings. And I run late all the time, so I'm not really one to get on that. But to me, I've actually talked to head coaches and GMs who are like, look, well, we gave that guy a lot of leeway as a rookie because we're like, oh, he's a great player. He's getting used to it. And now how do we pull back in? How do we start to have discipline when with this team, not back in college, with this team, we didn't do it? So I would say good on Mike Kafka for saying, hey, I'm not going to bench you for a game, but for one series to show that, yes, this is the standard that I'm expecting you to be held toward, whatever the previous regime was doing, I actually think is a really strong message of discipline to send to your team and to show, hey, I'm not just going to do this if you're a 4th round pick or if you're a 7th round pick or we picked you up as a journeyman on waivers. You're the 1st round pick, but you made a mistake and you have to follow the rules like everybody else.
Yeah, well said, and actually really good insight there from being there on Abdul Carter and on Jordan Love and the Packers. Read Jori, of course, on the Yahoo Sports NFL page. After that one, Green Bay holds on and gets a victory. All right, let's do something new here. I used to do this all the time on my old NFL Network show. We would do it real fast, like a lightning round, kind of final minute of the show as a, like, one more thing before we go. I want to say best of wishes, or best, like, good luck and best wishes and prayers and all our happy thoughts here collectively to my favorite football player of all time, my hero for football as a kid, the guy who made me fall in love with football when I was 11 years old, and a guy that I am honored and flattered to call a friend now, and that is Bernie Kosar, who got a new liver this morning at University Hospitals in Cleveland, Ohio. He got his liver transplant. He was able to tweet a video this morning after the surgery saying he is okay. He is on the road to recovery. Eric Metcalf, who's also, I'm honored to say, a friend. He and I went to the hospital Saturday to try to see Bernie. He had said, hey, come on up. And then when we got there, the doctors were like, no, we're this close to getting this transplant. We can't risk any outsiders coming into the hospital. And we understood and we stood down and like, fingers crossed, let's hope he can get that liver. Bernie got the liver. All of Ohio, all of Northeast Ohio, Browns fans everywhere are pulling for you, Bernie. We love you. Jori Epstein, one more thing.
Yeah, my one more thing, since we didn't talk about the Rams-Seahawks game, is that Sam Darnold, I get that he threw 4 interceptions, and I would say kudos to the Rams defense. They had him under pressure 28.9% of the time, according to Next Gen Stats. They were really kind of blanketing deep all of his receivers when I talked to people around the league on what they saw. But I don't know that this means that Sam Darnold is all of a sudden not going to be able to do it. Now, yes, there are certain games, and when you get pressure on him, when you kind of change what he's seeing in the post-snap disguises, but when you look at his turnover-worthy percentage, it's actually 13.6% in terms of turnover-worthy plays, which is like a third of what he had the week before. So I think it's kind of like he made some risky plays. He didn't quite understand what was going on with the post-snap disguises, and no one was open, so he took some chances. It didn't work out. I don't think that means that Sam Darnold is all of a sudden a pumpkin or reckless. I think he can figure it out. But if I'm the Seahawks, I don't want to face the Rams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I get that. Absolutely. Frank, one more thing.
I just want to give a shout out to Mike McDaniel, who, look, part of the job of covering the NFL is talking about coaches on the hot seat. And we had talked a lot about Mike McDaniel being on the hot seat. They were 1-6. And over the last 4 games, they've won 3 of them, including a big win over the Bills, blew out the Falcons. Sunday's win over the Commanders in Spain wasn't the prettiest one, but they won that. And you see Mike McDaniel kind of becoming Mike McDaniel again. He's out on South Beach trolling Bills fans after that win. After the Commanders win, he snuck into the press conference with Ollie Gordon and you know, hey, could you talk about how well you've been coached, Ollie? And so it's good to see that from Mike McDaniel, one of the most likable guys in the NFL, one of the most easiest to root for guys in the NFL. they have some winnable games coming up. Mike McDaniel might save his job permanently into 2026, and I'm hoping for it. I like him. I think he's a good coach. And just kudos to him. It was obviously a tough start to the season on him, everybody with the Dolphins. Winning 3 out of 4 to go from 1-6 to 4-7. Hey, pretty good progress for the Dolphins and good on Mike McDaniel.
Los Dolphins ganaron en España. Felicitaciones a Mike McDaniel. And thank you for watching, everybody. For Jori and Frank, I'm Andrew. Back Tuesday for another edition of Inside Coverage.